Control negative thoughts like Buddha in 5 powerful steps. How do you take control of your negative thoughts? Have you ever wondered why certain emotions like anger, jealousy, or resentment seem to grip you so powerfully, almost irresistibly? Is it really about your personality, your upbringing, or your circumstances? Or could there be something much deeper happening beneath the surface? Buddha, one of history's most profound spiritual teachers, believed that negative thoughts are not random or uncontrollable. In fact, he taught that you can master any negative emotion through 5 powerful steps, all rooted in the deepest layers of human consciousness. In this video, we will explore Buddha's fascinating teachings on mind control, emotional mastery, and why negative thoughts magnetically pull you into cycles of suffering, not because they're unstoppable, but because of how your mind naturally operates. We'll dive deep into the unconscious patterns that shape emotional reactions and reveal the 5 profound steps that can transform any negative mental state. Steps that go far beyond surface-level techniques and instead reflect the architecture of mental training that Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Moon Mind Temple channel and join our community where you'll get early access to new videos and insights on spiritual growth and mental mastery. Now let's get started. The natural tendency of the mind. We often like to think of our negative emotions as unwelcome visitors, sudden storms that appear without warning. Yet for Buddha, even the most overwhelming emotional reactions follow a deeper pattern, an inner logic crafted not by chance but by the untrained mind. What feels like a spontaneous burst of anger or anxiety is rarely spontaneous at all. It is the visible result of invisible mental habits shaped by years of unconscious reactions, unprocessed emotions, and automatic thinking. Behind every emotional surge is a structure, a silent architecture of the mind that guides us towards certain thoughts and not others. And this is where Buddha introduces the fundamental insight about consciousness. Each of us carries within us a mind that naturally tends toward the negative. Buddha compared the untrained mind to a wild elephant, powerful, unpredictable, and potentially destructive when not properly guided. This wild mind doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It waits. It speaks to us through intrusive thoughts, emotional reactions, and impulsive behaviors. When we encounter situations that resonate with our mental patterns, we feel overwhelmed in ways that seem mysterious, even inevitable. But it's not the situations controlling us. It's our untrained mind responding in the only way it knows how. Imagine a person who has spent their life reacting to criticism with anger. When they receive feedback, even constructive, they feel rage rising, seemingly beyond control. That feeling isn't random. It's the culmination of mental habits, of never having learned to respond differently. The emotional reaction is real, but the true force behind it is the untrained mind responding in its default pattern. The first reason, awareness is the foundation. Buddha taught that there are 2 fundamental reasons people remain trapped in negative thinking and 2 corresponding paths to freedom. The first reason is simple yet profound: lack of awareness. Most people live on autopilot, completely identified with their thoughts and emotions, never realizing they have the capacity to observe them rather than become them. This awareness, what Buddha called mindfulness, isn't just another mental technique. It's the foundation of all mental mastery. Without awareness, we remain unconscious participants in our mental processes, believing I am angry, rather than recognizing I am experiencing anger. This subtle distinction makes all the difference in the world. When someone cuts you off in traffic, your mind might instantly produce thoughts like, "What an idiot," or "People are so selfish." These thoughts seem automatic, even natural. But Buddha would point out that there's a microscopic gap between the event and your reaction. That gap is where freedom lives. Awareness allows you to notice this gap and eventually expand it. The first step in Buddha's system is developing the capacity to catch yourself in the act of thinking negative thoughts. not to judge them, not to fight them, just to notice them with calm, clear awareness. This might sound simple, but it's rarely easy. The mind has spent decades operating on autopilot, and bringing awareness to its movements requires consistent practice. Buddha compared this practice to training a puppy. You don't expect the puppy to be perfectly behaved immediately. You gently, consistently guide it back to where it should be, thousands of times if necessary. This patient persistence is how awareness grows. The second reason, the need for a systematic approach. The second reason people remain trapped in negative thinking is even more fundamental. They lack a systematic approach to working with difficult emotions. Most people either suppress their negative thoughts, which only makes them stronger, or they indulge them, which creates negative mental habits. Buddha offered a middle way, a gradual progressive training that neither suppresses nor indulges. This graduated training acknowledges a profound truth about the mind. Different negative thoughts require different approaches. Some negative thoughts are like gentle breezes that can be redirected with minimal effort. Others are like hurricanes that require multiple strategies and tremendous mental strength. Buddha's genius was creating a system flexible enough to work with any negative state while being structured enough to provide clear direction. Think of it like learning martial arts. A beginner doesn't start by fighting the master. They begin with basic movements, gradually building strength, flexibility, and technique. Similarly, Buddha's approach doesn't expect you to instantly master your most difficult emotions. It provides a sequence of increasingly subtle techniques that develop your mental muscles over time. This systematic approach is what separates Buddha's teaching from most modern think positive advice. It's not about forcing positive thoughts or denying negative ones. It's about developing a comprehensive set of skills that allow you to work with any mental state, from mild irritation to overwhelming rage or despair. The 5 steps, Buddha's graduated training. Now let's explore Buddha's 5-step system for controlling negative thoughts. Remember, this isn't about applying all 5 steps at once. It's a graduated approach. You begin with the first method, and only if that doesn't work do you proceed to the second, and so on. Each step becomes progressively more powerful, but also requires more mental strength. The first step, shift to wholesome thoughts. Buddha taught that the simplest way to handle a negative thought is to deliberately shift your attention to its opposite. If you're feeling anger, consciously cultivate thoughts of kindness. If you're consumed with desire, reflect on contentment. If you're caught in judgment, practice acceptance. Imagine you're feeling envious of a friend's success. Rather than feeding this envy with thoughts like, they don't deserve it, or I should have that instead, you deliberately think, I'm happy for their achievement, or their success doesn't diminish my own path. This isn't denying your initial reaction. It's consciously choosing a healthier mental direction. This method works because the mind cannot fully entertain opposite thoughts simultaneously. By deliberately cultivating the positive alternative, you weaken the negative thought's grip. However, Buddha recognized that sometimes a negative thought is too powerful to be countered this way, which leads to the second step. Consider the disadvantages. When shifting to a positive alternative isn't working, Buddha suggested reflecting on the harmful consequences of staying with the negative thought. This isn't about shaming yourself. It's about seeing clearly where this thought leads. For example, if you're caught in thoughts of resentment towards someone, you might reflect, if I continue feeding this resentment, I'll be the one suffering. My mind will be disturbed, my peace taken away. This resentment will likely lead to words or actions I'll regret. Is this thought really worth the harm it causes me? This rational reflection can often break the spell of a compelling negative emotion by appealing to your deeper values and your desire for well-being. Yet Buddha knew that sometimes even this logical approach isn't enough, which brings us to the third step. Before we continue, I truly hope you're finding this video insightful. If so, Don't forget to share it with anyone who might benefit from these ideas. Your support means the world to us. Now let's continue. The third step, pay no mind. When the first two approaches don't work, Buddha suggested a more direct technique, deliberate non-attention. This doesn't mean suppression. It means consciously choosing not to engage with the thought, the way you might choose not to engage with a pushy salesperson. Buddha compared this to a person with good eyesight who simply closes their eyes or looks away when confronted with disturbing images. You acknowledge the thought is there, but you don't give it your attention. Instead, you redirect your focus to something neutral or beneficial, like your breath, a task at hand, or physical sensations. This practice requires stronger mindfulness because you must catch the thought quickly before it pulls you into its story. With practice, you develop the ability to recognize negative thought patterns within seconds of their arising and calmly withdraw your attention. However, some thoughts are so compelling they continue to demand attention even when ignored, which leads to the fourth step. Relax the thought formation process. When a negative thought persists despite ignoring it, Buddha taught a more advanced technique, examining and relaxing the mental process that creates and sustains the thought. This method involves turning your attention to the mechanics of thinking itself. For example, if you're caught in anxious thoughts about the future, instead of focusing on the content of those thoughts, you notice how your mind constructs anxiety, the mental images, the internal dialogue, the physical sensations, the underlying assumptions. As you observe these components with calm awareness, you begin to relax the mental grip that holds them together. Buddha compared this to a person walking quickly who gradually slows down, then stands, then sits, then lies down. You're deliberately relaxing the energetic process that keeps the thought in motion. This requires subtle awareness and the ability to observe mental processes without being caught in them. But for the most persistent negative thoughts, even this approach might not be enough, which brings us to the fifth step. Crush the thought with awareness. For extremely persistent negative thoughts, Buddha taught the most forceful approach, actively confronting and subduing the thought with the full power of concentrated awareness. This isn't about fighting or resistance, which only creates more tension. It's about bringing such intense, focused awareness to the thought that it cannot survive this level of observation. Buddha described this as being like a strong person physically pinning down a weaker person. You bring your full mental strength and concentration to bear on the negative thought, firmly but not violently. This requires significant mental development and is considered the most advanced technique in the sequence. Imagine you have a persistent negative thought that keeps returning despite all other approaches. Instead of avoiding it, you turn your full attention toward it. With calm determination, you observe it completely, its shape, its feel, its story, its energy. You don't fight it. You illuminate it so fully that it cannot hide in the shadows of unconsciousness. Under this intense, unwavering awareness, even the most persistent thought begins to lose its grip. These 5 steps form Buddha's graduated training for working with negative thoughts. From the gentle redirection of attention to the powerful concentration of awareness, they provide a complete system that can be applied to any negative mental state. But Buddha emphasized one crucial point. This is a training, not a quick fix. Just as a musician must practice scales before playing concertos, you must develop these mental skills gradually, starting with simpler challenges before facing your most difficult emotions. The beauty of this system is that it grows with you. As your awareness strengthens, your capacity to work with difficult thoughts expands. What once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable. The mind that once seemed wild and uncontrollable gradually becomes your ally rather than your master. The transformation, beyond controlling thoughts. Despite the power and effectiveness of these 5 steps, Buddha did not see them merely as techniques for feeling better. He viewed them as tools of transformation, paths to profound insight about the nature of mind itself. Every negative thought you work with becomes not just an emotional challenge, but a doorway to understanding. Each time you successfully apply these steps, you're not just controlling a negative thought, you're rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways, establishing healthier mental habits. What begins as deliberate practice eventually becomes your natural way of being. The gap between stimulus and response grows wider, your awareness becomes clearer, and your freedom from reactive patterns increases. But there's an even deeper dimension to Buddha's teaching. As you practice these methods consistently, you begin to see something profound about the nature of thoughts themselves. You discover that thoughts are not solid things, but fleeting processes. They appear, change, and dissolve like clouds in the sky. They have no permanent substance or inherent reality. This insight strikes at the root of why negative thoughts cause suffering in the first place. We suffer not just because thoughts are negative, but because we believe they are our thoughts, that they represent reality, that they define who we are. Buddha's training gradually reveals the insubstantial, impersonal nature of thinking itself. Some people come to this practice seeking relief from specific negative emotions. Others come to find inner peace or improve their relationships. Still others come seeking spiritual insight or enlightenment. Buddha taught that all these motivations are valid starting points, and the practice itself will reveal what each person truly needs. These methods can be applied to everyday challenges like managing stress or improving focus. They can help with deeper emotional wounds like trauma or grief. And they can ultimately lead to the most profound transformation, the realization of your own intrinsic freedom, your capacity to be present with any experience without being controlled by it. These are not just ancient techniques preserved for historical interest. They have been validated by modern neuroscience, psychology, and the lived experience of millions of practitioners across cultures and centuries. They work because they address the fundamental nature of mind itself, not just its surface expressions. So why do negative thoughts have such power over people? Because they either don't know how to work with their mind, or they haven't developed a systematic approach to training it. And the same is true for you. You may have been caught in negative thinking patterns not because there's something wrong with you, but because you haven't yet learned how to become the master of your own mind. But if you don't recognize these patterns and learn these skills, you risk staying trapped, reacting to the same triggers, repeating the same emotional cycles, chasing the same temporary solutions. You might believe you're unlucky or flawed when in fact your mind is simply operating according to its conditioning, waiting for you to take the reins. Buddha would say the answer is awareness and consistent practice. Once you understand how thoughts arise and how to work with them skillfully, you stop being controlled by mental states. You start becoming their master. And from that place, life transforms. It's no longer governed by reactivity or avoidance. It becomes spacious, present, and free. Because in the end, the deepest peace isn't about having only positive thoughts. It's about developing a relationship with your mind where no thought, positive or negative, controls you. You don't just control negative thoughts. You discover the part of yourself that exists beyond all thinking. So the next time a negative thought arises, remember Buddha's graduated approach. Start with the first step and only proceed to the next if needed. Be patient with yourself, knowing that you're rewiring patterns that may have existed for decades. With consistent practice, what once seemed impossible becomes natural. The wild elephant of your mind becomes a powerful ally on your journey. If this video made you reflect on your own experiences with negative thoughts and mental mastery, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to Moon Mind Temple for more deep, thought-provoking content about psychology, spirituality, and the inner world. Until next time, may your practice be steady and your awareness clear.